Jade! Her name left his lips like a prayer and a curse all at once. She stood from the bed, her bare feet silent on the plush carpet. You shouldn't be here. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. Shouldn't be where? He took a long drag from his cigarette, exhaled smoke that curled through the air between them. In my own house? He was drunk. Not sloppy drunk. Jaywan had too much control for that, but the kind of drunk where inhibitions dissolved and the monster underneath the expensive suits came crawling out. It's late. I should what? He moved further into the room, setting the whiskey glass on her dresser with deliberate care. The cigarette remained in his hand, ash threatening to fall on her carpet. Should wait? Should be patient? Should play by the rules we agreed on? Jade's hands clenched at her sides. We had an agreement. Agreements. He laughed, bitter and dark, and took another drink directly from a flask he produced from his pocket. You talk about agreements, like you have any power here. Like you have any choice. He moved closer. She retreated until her legs hit the bed frame. The agreement was the wedding night, Jade said, trying to keep her voice steady. You said you'd wait until the wedding night. You promised. Jaywan stubbed out a cigarette in the ashtray on her nightstand. When had he gotten so close? And looked at her with eyes that had gone from cold calculation to something more dangerous. Something hungry and desperate and unhinged. I've been thinking about that, he said softly. About promises, about waiting, about all the things I've denied myself because I wanted to do this the right way. He made air quotes around the words, mockery dripping from them. And you know what I realized, Jade? He set down the flask and took another step. They were 3 feet apart now. Close enough for her to smell the whiskey on his breath. The expensive cologne that couldn't quite mask the scent of cigarettes and something else. Desperation. I realized something important. What? The word came out as barely a whisper. I can change my mind. His hand reached out, her fingers brushing her arm. She jerked back. That's the privilege of power, Jade. I get to change my mind. I get to make new rules. I get to take what's mine whenever I decide I want it. No. Jade shook her head, moving sideways along the bed, trying to create distance. You said wedding night. You promised. You said you wanted it to be legitimate, legal, proper. Proper. He laughed again, and it was a sound completely devoid of humor. Why should I wait 12 more days? He followed her movement, predator tracking prey. You think 12 more days of anticipation will make you more willing, more eager? His hand shot out faster than she expected, grabbing her wrist. His grip wasn't bruising, but it was firm, inescapable. Let me tell you something about anticipation, Jade. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of watching you flinch when I touch you. I'm tired of playing gentleman while you parade around my house wearing my ring and counting down the days like you're heading to your execution. Because that's what it is, Jade said, finding some reservoir of courage she thought had dried up weeks ago. You're not a gentleman. You're my jailer. And this isn't a marriage. It's a life sentence. Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or rage so deep it looked almost like pain. His other hand came up, grabbing her other wrist, and suddenly she was trapped. His body crowding her backward until her spine hit the wall beside her bed. Jailer, he repeated softly. Is that what you think I am? It's what you are. Then let me show you what jailers do, he said, and his mouth descended to her neck. Jade's entire body went rigid. No! Get off me! She pushed at his chest, but he was bigger, stronger, and the alcohol had stripped away whatever thin veneer of restraint he usually maintained. His lips moved against her neck, kissing, biting, marking her as his, while she struggled. Stop! Her voice rose, panic bleeding through. Jaywan, stop! Shh! His breath was hot against her skin. Stop fighting. You know this was always going to happen. One of his hands released her wrist to tangle in her hair, tilting her head to give him better access to her throat. The other hand moved to her hip, pulling her flush against him. Please. Jade whispered, tears starting to leak from her eyes. Please don't do this. You wanted the wedding, the legitimacy, everyone watching us. Fuck the wedding. He growled against her collarbone. Fuck legitimacy. I'm tired of waiting for you to accept this. Tired of giving you time to adjust. You've had 2 weeks, Jade. 2 weeks to get used to the idea that you're mine. And you're still fighting me like you have a choice. He grabbed her face with one hand, forced her to look at him. His eyes were wild, pupils blown wide with alcohol and want and something that might have been desperation if she didn't hate him too much to care. Let's start the honeymoon early, he said. Then his mouth crashed onto hers. It wasn't a kiss. It was an assault. All force and demand and the taste of whiskey and smoke. Jade made a sound of protest, her hands pushing frantically at his chest, but he was immovable. He kissed her like he was trying to devour her, like he could somehow force her compliance through sheer will. When she managed to turn her face away, gasping for air, he didn't stop. His mouth moved to her jaw, her neck, her shoulder, pushing aside the collar of her silk pajamas. Stop, stop, stop. But he wasn't listening. He walked her backward, his body pressing hers, until she was pinned against the wall completely. Nowhere to go, no escape. One hand beside her head on the wall, the other gripping her hip, hard enough to bruise. This was really happening. After 2 weeks of cat and mouse, of psychological torture and cold control, Jaywan was finally taking what he'd been threatening to take all along. The wedding night had always been a lie, a deadline he'd dangled to give her false hope that she had 12 more days of safety. She'd been a fool to believe it. His hand moved from her hip, sliding up her side, and Jade squeezed her eyes shut, trying to retreat inside herself, trying to go somewhere else. Kang Jaywan. The voice came from outside, loud, commanding, furious. Jaywan froze, lips still pressed against Jade's collarbone. His breathing was ragged, his body tense against hers. The voice came again, clearer now, cutting through the night like a blade. Jaywan, I know you're in there. Jade felt Jaywan's confusion before she saw it. His head lifted slowly from where he'd been kissing her neck. His brow furrowed, drunk mind trying to process what he was hearing. What the? He started, then stopped. The voice came a third time, and this time there was no mistaking it. Kang Jaywan, get out here! Jade knew that voice. Minjay. Jaywan pulled back from her, stumbling slightly. His face had gone from flushed with arousal to pale with shock in seconds. That's not... He shook his head like he could shake away the whiskey fog. That's not possible. He turned toward the balcony, his platinum blonde hair catching the ambient light from outside as he moved. Jade collapsed against the wall, her legs suddenly unable to hold her weight. Her hand flew to her mouth, muffling a sob. Minjay. He was here. He'd come back. He was meant to disappear far away from Seoul. She heard rather than saw Jaywan stumble toward the balcony doors. The glass slid open with a harsh sound. Cool night air rushed into the room, carrying with it the sounds of the compound below. Guards shouting, confusion, and underneath it all, that voice. That impossible, wonderful, terrifying voice. Jade pushed herself off the wall and moved on shaking legs toward the balcony doorway. She stayed just inside the room, hidden in shadow, but where she could see. Jaywan stood at the railing, gripping it with white knuckles, staring down at the courtyard below. The compound lights illuminated the scene like a stage, and center stage stood a man who couldn't possibly be who Jade thought he was. But it was. Minjay. Except, not the Minjay she remembered. Not the gentle dancer with soft eyes and messy dark brown hair who'd held her like she was something precious. Not the man who'd chosen art over violence, beauty over power. This man wore power like a second skin. His hair, God, his hair had been dyed a deep wine red, the color of expensive burgundy, styled back from his face in a way that made his features sharp and dangerous. He wore a suit that looked like it cost more than most people's cars, perfectly tailored to his lean frame, the kind of suit that announced wealth and authority without saying a word. But it was his posture that stole Jade's breath. His shoulders were back, chin high, feet planted in a stance that said he owned the ground he stood on. No hesitation, no fear, no trace of the man who'd run away 7 years ago. This was someone else entirely. Someone who'd been forged in the fire of exile and emerged as something harder, something dangerous. Around him, Jaywan's guards formed a cautious circle, hands on weapons but not drawing them. They didn't know what to do. Their boss's supposedly dead brother had just walked into the compound like he owned the place. Maybe he did. "Hello, brother." Minjay's voice carried up to the balcony, clear and cold. "Miss me?" Jaywan swayed slightly, gripping the railing harder. "You were meant to leave Seoul." Minjay smiled, and it was nothing like the smiles Jade remembered. "I'm back, Jaywan, and I'm taking everything you stole. The company, the territory, the respect, the power." His eyes, even from this distance, Jade could see them burning with cold fury, locked onto his brother. "All of it," Jaywan laughed, but it sounded brittle. "We had an agreement. You stay away. You gave up your claim. That agreement," Minjay's voice dropped to something more dangerous, "was between you and her." He pointed upward, toward where Jade stood, hidden in the shadows of the balcony doorway. "Not with me. You made a deal with my woman. You threatened her. You blackmailed her into sacrificing herself to save my life." He took another step, and this time his voice rose, carrying across the courtyard so everyone could hear. "That deal is void. Your woman?" Jaywan's fingers flexed on the railing. "She's mine. She wears my ring. In 12 days, she'll be my wife." The words hit Jade like a physical blow. My wife. Like she was a possession. Like she wasn't standing right here, listening to them trade her back and forth like property. But Minjay's response made her heart stutter. "There won't be a wedding." His voice had gone deadly calm. "Because you won't be empowered to hold one." Silence fell across the courtyard. Even the guards seemed to hold their breath. Jaywan leaned over the railing. "You think you can take this from me? Look at you. Playing dress up. Dyeing your hair. You're still the same weak little brother who ran away 7 years ago. You're just wearing a better suit. You know what my mistake was, Hyung?" Min-jae used the Korean honorific for older brother, but there was no respect in it, only disdain. "My mistake was being scared of you, scared of your violence, your cruelty, your jealousy. I let fear control me." He spread his arms, the gesture taking in his transformation. "But I'm not scared anymore, and now I'm back to claim what's mine." "Mine!" Jaywan shouted, and suddenly he whirled around, his wild eyes finding Jade in the doorway. Before she could react, he crossed the distance and grabbed her, one arm wrapping around her waist, the other hand fisting in her hair. He dragged her out onto the balcony, using her as a human shield as he faced his brother. "You want her?" he yelled down. "You'll have to go through me. One step closer and I'll..." "If one hair on her head goes missing." Minjay's voice cut through Jaywan's threat like a knife through silk. Every word precise, every syllable weighted with deadly promise. "If she has one new bruise, if she sheds one more tear because of you..." He paused, and in that pause, Jade heard everything he wasn't saying. "You won't live to tell the tale." The courtyard went silent. That wasn't just a threat. It was a vow. Jaywan's grip on Jade loosened slightly. She could feel his heart hammering against her back, could feel the tremor in his hands. He was scared. For the first time since she'd known him, Kang Jaywan was actually scared. "This is a death threat," one of the guards muttered. "In front of witnesses." "Yes," Minjay said calmly, his eyes never leaving his brother. "Yes, it is." Jaywan seemed to regain some of his composure. He pulled Jade tighter against him. "You can't beat me. I have the power. The men, the money. You have fear and violence." Minjay's voice was steady as a stone. I have legitimacy and law. Let's see which wins. Legitimacy? Law? Jaywan laughed, but it sounded forced. This is Korea's criminal underworld, little brother. There is no law here, only power. Wrong. Minjay smiled again, that terrible cold smile. Family law, the Council of Elders. The rules our father established. Those still matter. And according to those laws, I am the rightful heir, not you. He took another step forward. The guards glanced at each other, uncertain. 12 days, Jaywan. You have 12 days before your wedding. Except it won't happen. Because by then, I'll have taken everything from you, the same way you tried to take everything from me. The council has already agreed to meet, emergency session, to decide who leads this family. Minjay's eyes glittered in the compound lights. Legitimate heir chosen by our father, or the brother who took power by force and fear? Jade felt Jaywan's entire body go rigid against her. They wouldn't dare. Oh, they dared. Elder Kim called the session himself. All 5 elders will vote. Min-jae tilted his head slightly. Didn't you know? I thought you had such good intelligence. You can't, this isn't... Jaywan was stuttering now, his control slipping with every word. I built this empire while you were playing dancer on some island. I have everything. You have nothing. I have legitimacy. I have the elders willing to listen. And I have something you'll never have. What's that? Jaywan spat. Minjay's eyes found Jade's over his brother's shoulder. Their gazes locked, and in that moment, despite the fear coursing through her veins, despite the bruising grip Jaywan had on her, Jade felt something she hadn't felt in 2 weeks. Hope. I have her heart, Minjay said softly. You just have her fear. And you can't build anything lasting on fear. The words hit Jaywan like a physical blow. His grip on Jade spasmed, and she used that moment to wrench herself partly free, putting a few inches between them. He's right, she whispered, just loud enough for Jaywan to hear. You have my fear, my hatred, my forced compliance. But you'll never have me, not really. Jaywan's face contorted with rage. You bitch! But before he could finish, before he could grab her again, Minjay's voice cracked through the air like a whip. Touch her again, and you're a dead man. I don't care about consequences. I don't care about the family. I don't care about anything except keeping her safe from you. He turned, preparing to leave, then looked back over his shoulder. The compound lights caught his wine-red hair, made it glow like dark fire. 6 days, brother. The council meets in 6 days to decide who leads. Use that time wisely. Because when I win, and I will win, the first thing I'm doing is ending this farce of an engagement and sending you away from her forever. You can't win, Jaywan shouted. I have the power, the soldiers, everything. You have fear and violence, Minjay repeated calmly. I have legitimacy and law. We'll see which the elders choose. He looked at Jade one more time. His expression softened just for a moment, just enough for her to see past the hard exterior to the man she'd loved underneath. Hold on, Jade, he said quietly. Just hold on a little longer. I'm coming for you. Then he turned on his heel and walked away, disappearing into the shadows beyond the compound lights. The guards scrambled to follow, but he was already gone, melting into Seoul's night like smoke. For a long moment, nobody moved. The compound was silent except for the distant sounds of traffic, of the city beyond the walls continuing its endless rhythm. Then Jaywan released Jade so suddenly she stumbled. He whirled on her, his face a mask of rage and something else, something that looked almost like panic. He's back, he said, and his voice shook. He's actually back. Jade pressed herself against the balcony railing, as far from him as she could get. Yes, she managed. He is. No. Jaywan was shaking his head, running his hands through his platinum blonde hair, making it stand up in wild spikes. No, no, no. This can't be happening. He was supposed to stay away. You were supposed to convince him to stay away. I never wanted him to stay away, Jade said, and she was shocked by how steady her voice sounded. I wanted him to come back. I wanted him to fight for me. And he is. Jaywan looked at her, And for just a second, she saw something break behind his eyes. Then his face hardened into the cold mask she'd learned to fear. "He's back," he repeated. Then his eyes focused on her, with terrible intensity. "But you're still here. You're still mine. And in 12 days, you'll be my wife, whether he's back or not." "The council? Fuck the council." Spittle flew from his lips. "I don't care what they decide. I don't care about legitimacy or family law or any of it. You're mine." He advanced on her, and Jade pressed harder against the railing, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. But before he could reach her, his phone rang. The sound cut through the tension like a blade. Jaywan stopped, fumbled for his phone, looked at the screen. His face went even paler. "What?" He barked into it, listened. "What do you mean they're... what?" He listened more, his face cycling through emotions faster than Jade could track. Shock, rage, fear, more rage. "Fine," he finally spat. "Fine, but this isn't over. You tell them..." "No, I'll tell them myself." He hung up, stood there for a moment, staring at nothing. Then, without looking at Jade, he said, "Get inside. Now." "What?" "Get inside." She scrambled past him, through the balcony doors, expecting him to follow. To finish what he'd started before Min-jae's interruption, but he didn't. He just stood there on the balcony, looking out at his compound, his kingdom, as if seeing it for the first time. As if realizing how fragile his grip on power really was. After what felt like an eternity, he turned and walked past her without a word. Walked to the door, opened it, paused. "This isn't over," he said, without looking back. "He thinks he can waltz back in and take everything? He has no idea what I'm capable of." Then he was gone, the door slamming shut behind him. The lock clicked. Jade stood frozen in the middle of her room for a long moment, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Then her legs gave out and she collapsed onto the bed, whole body shaking. Minjay had come back. He'd transformed himself into something sharp and dangerous and powerful. He'd publicly challenged his brother for control of the family, and he'd promised to save her. Jade brought her hands to her face and did something she hadn't allowed herself to do in 2 weeks. She cried. But this time, they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of relief, of hope, of something she'd thought was dead inside her, flickering back to life. She hadn't seen this part of Minjay since she knew him. She lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. 12 days until the wedding. 6 days until the council met. 6 days for Minjay to convince the family elders that he was the rightful leader. 6 days to either freedom or forever being trapped as Jaywan's wife. Jade closed her eyes, pressed her hand to her chest where her heart was still hammering. She could still feel Jaywan's hands on her, his mouth on her neck. The terror of those moments before Minjay's voice had cut through the night. And she could still see Minjay's eyes finding hers across the distance. Still hear his promise, "I'm coming for you." 6 days, she whispered. "I can survive 6 more days." She had to believe that, because the alternative, that Minjay would fail, that the council would side with Jaywan, that she'd be forced to marry a man who just tried to assault her, was unthinkable. Sleep wouldn't come that night. She lay awake as the hours crept by, her mind replaying the scene over and over. Minjay's transformation, his confidence, the way he'd faced down Jaywan without fear, the way he'd threatened to kill his own brother to protect her. The thought made her smile, just a little, just enough. Then her door opened again. Jade spun around, heart leaping into her throat, expecting Jaywan again, expecting round 2 of whatever had been interrupted last night. But it was just a maid, the same middle-aged woman who'd been bringing her meals. The woman looked terrified, her eyes wide. "Miss Bennett," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder like she expected guards to burst in. "I was told to give you this." She pressed a small piece of paper into Jade's hand, then hurried out before Jade could ask questions. Jade unfolded the paper with shaking hands. The message was short, written in a handwriting she didn't recognize, but in English. 6 days. Hold on, I'm coming. Jade pressed the paper to her chest and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. 6 days. She could do 6 days? She had to. Hey, Seoul Stars! If you're just joining us in this series, stop. You need to check out parts 1, 2, and 3 first, or you're going to be completely lost. For everyone who's been here from the beginning, you already know this is going to be intense. Let's go. The safe house was nothing like Jaywan's compound, where Jaywan had surrounded himself with modern luxury and displays of wealth. This place was traditional, understated, old money rather than new, dark wood and paper screens, tatami mats and low tables. The kind of place that had been in the family for generations, passed down through more legitimate lines of succession. The kind of place that remembered when the Kang family had honor. Minjay sat at the low table in the main room, his wine-red hair catching the morning light filtering through the screens. He'd changed from the suit into more casual clothes, expensive still, but comfortable. Dark slacks, a fitted black shirt, the kind of outfit that said he belonged in this world but wasn't trapped by its formality. Across from him sat advisor Shim, a man in his 70s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He'd been Min-jae's father's most trusted counselor, had practically raised both boys after their mother died, had watched one son be chosen, watched the other son's jealousy poison him, watched the family tear itself apart. Now he watched the chosen son come home. "You're sure about this?" Shim asked, not for the first time since Minjay had returned to Seoul 3 days ago. Challenging him directly, the council meeting, all of it? "I'm sure." Minjay's voice was steady, the voice of someone who'd spent 7 years preparing for this exact moment. He won't give up power easily. He's built too much, gone too far. "I know. He'll use her against you. He already is." Minjay's jaw tightened. "I know that too." Shim studied him for a long moment. "You've changed, Minjay. The boy who left 7 years ago wouldn't have walked into that compound last night. That boy was weak. That boy was kind. Kindness doesn't survive in this world." Minjay looked up, meeting Shim's eyes. "You taught me that. All those lessons father made me sit through, all the family history, all the stories of succession battles and power struggles. The lesson was always the same. Kind men don't lead. They get crushed by men like Jaywan. Your father was kind? And look where it got him." The words came out harder than Minjay intended. He softened his tone. "Father loved us both. He tried to balance Jaywan's ambition with my compassion. He thought we'd lead together someday, that we'd balance each other. He was wrong. He was naive." Minjay stood, moved to the window overlooking a small traditional garden. Jaywan was never going to share power. He needed to be better than me, to prove something to father, to himself, to everyone. And I was in his way. So he tried to kill you. He's also tripled the revenue. And yet the elders still follow Jaywan, because they're scared, or greedy, or both. Minjay moved back to the table, sat. "That's what I have to change. That's why I need the council meeting. If I can show them there's another way." "If," Shim interrupted. "That's a big if, Minjay. You have support, yes. Elder Kim remembers your father's will. He'll vote for you on principle, but the others? Elder Park is lost to me. He and Jaywan are partners in too many ventures. He profits Then I'll show him. Minjay stood. I need to see the family businesses. All of them. I need to understand what Jaywan's built, where it's strong, where it's weak. I need to be able to walk into that council meeting and demonstrate I know this empire better than the brother who's been running it. Shim raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious. There are dozens of operations. You have 6 days. Then I'd better get started. What about her? Jade? The question stopped Minjay at the door. He turned back, and for just a moment, the hard mask he'd learned to wear cracked. Underneath was the man Jade remembered, the gentle dancer who'd chosen love over power. I sent her a message this morning, through one of the servants, told her to hold on. And if you lose the vote? Minjay's jaw set. Then I'll take her by force and we'll leave Korea, forever. But I'd prefer to win. So would I. Shim stood as well. Min-jae, your father would be proud of you, of who you've become. But he'd also worry. This path you're walking, confronting Jaywan, challenging the council, trying to save Jade while claiming power, it's dangerous. You could lose everything. Your life, hers, all of it. I already lost everything 7 years ago. I lost my family, my home, my birthright, and the woman I love. I'm just here to take it back. Or die trying? If necessary. Minjay met Shim's eyes, but I'd prefer not to. So let's make sure I win. By evening, the whispers had reached every corner of the family's empire. The brother who'd vanished 7 years ago had returned, and he looked different, acted different, moved through the world with an authority and confidence that no one remembered him having before. Jaywan would hear the whispers, would know his brother wasn't hiding, wasn't sneaking around, was openly declaring his presence and his intent. Good. Let him know. Let him worry. Let him spend the next 6 days looking over his shoulder, wondering when Minjay would make his move. That night, Minjay sat alone in the safe house, going over everything he'd learned. The businesses were profitable, yes, but they were also the tip of the iceberg. Minjay's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Han River Park, East Side. Come alone. Yoon, he smiled. Elder Yoon, taking the meeting. One step closer. He was about to put the phone down when it buzzed again. This time, a message from Shim. She's okay. Confirmed through the servant. Scared, but okay. Waiting for you. Minjay closed his eyes, pressed the phone to his forehead. Jade. Alone in that compound with a man who just tried to assault her, who was probably spiraling into paranoid rage, who saw her as the key to winning this war. 6 days suddenly felt like an eternity. But he had no choice. If he moved too fast, he'd lose. If he tried to be the hero and storm the compound tomorrow, Jaywan would crush him with superior numbers and entrenched power. Minjay opened his eyes, set the phone down, and went back to his research. 6 days. He'd spent 7 years hiding. 6 more days wouldn't kill him. He hoped it wouldn't kill her either, because she sacrificed herself for him. And the last thing he'll do is to sit and watch another man have her. Across the city, in the compound, Jaywan sat in his office, surrounded by darkness. He hadn't turned on the lights, hadn't wanted to see his reflection in the windows, hadn't wanted to face what he'd almost done tonight, what he'd almost become. His brother was back, even after threatening him and sending him away. The thoughts circled in his mind like a shark, relentless and hungry. Minjay. Gentle, artistic, father's favorite Minjay. The brother who was supposed to stay gone, supposed to remain a ghost. A cautionary tale about choosing love over power. But the man who'd stood in his courtyard tonight hadn't been gentle, hadn't been artistic, had looked at Jaywan with eyes that promised death without hesitation. Where had that transformation come from? What had 7 years of exile done to his brothers? Jaywan reached for the bottle of whiskey on his desk, poured another glass with shaking hands. He was still drunk from earlier, but not drunk enough to silence the voice in his head, asking questions he didn't want to answer. What if Minjay wins? What if the council sides with him? What if legitimacy matters more than power? No, that was impossible. He'd spent 7 years building this empire. He'd made the elders rich, had protected them, had given them everything they wanted. They wouldn't throw that away for a prodigal son with a birth certificate and a dead father's will, would they? His phone rang. Jaywan looked at the screen. Elder Park, he answered. What? We need to talk. Park's voice was tight. Your brother visited 3 of our businesses today. Openly. Asked questions. Made his presence known. So people are talking. Word is spreading that the heir is back. The real heir, some are saying, the one your father chose. My father's dead. His will isn't, neither is family law. Jaywan, you need to understand the position you're in. I understand perfectly. Jaywan cut him off. My brother thinks he can come back and claim what I built. He can't. The council meeting is in 6 days. If he convinces 3 elders, he won't. How can you be sure? Because I'll make sure. Jaywan's voice dropped to something darker. I'll remind the elders what happens when people cross me. I'll remind them who has the real power in this family. Jaywan, and I'll remind my brother that he has a weakness. A very beautiful, very vulnerable weakness locked in my compound. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, you're going to use her against him. Of course I am. It's the only leverage I have. That's... Park paused, choosing words carefully. That's a dangerous game. If the elders see you as out of control, if they think you're ruled by emotion, they'll see me as strong, willing to do whatever it takes to protect what's mine. Or they'll see you as exactly what your brother said you are, a man who rules by fear instead of respect. The words hit harder than Jaywan wanted to admit. He drank more whiskey, felt it burn down his throat without warming him. Whose side are you on, Elder Park? Yours, always. You know that. I've invested too much in your success to switch now. But I'm telling you, as a friend and an ally, you need to be careful. Your brother isn't the boy who left 7 years ago. He's changed, and he's going to use every advantage he has, including his status as the chosen heir. Then I'll use my advantages, including the woman he loves. Park was quiet for a long moment. What are you planning? I'm planning to win. By any means necessary. Don't do anything before the council meeting. Please, 6 days. Can you control yourself for 6 days? I'm perfectly in control. You don't sound like it. Jaywan hung up, set the phone down, drank more whiskey. His eyes went to the security monitor on his desk, the one that showed feeds from around the compound. He clicked through them until he found the one he wanted. Jade's bedroom. She was awake, sitting by the window, looking out at Seoul. Even through the grainy security footage, he could see the hope in her posture. The way she sat straighter now than she had yesterday. The way she kept touching her pocket, where she'd hidden the note someone had smuggled to her. Jaywan smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Let her hope. Let her think salvation was coming. It would make the crushing of that hope all the more devastating when he won the council vote and married her anyway. He opened his desk drawer, pulled out a file. Inside were profiles on each of the 5 elders. Their businesses, their families, their secrets. Everything Jaywan had accumulated over 7 years of careful manipulation and strategic alliance building. Elder Kim was lost to him. The old man was too traditional, would vote for Minjay on principle. Fine. He only needed 3 votes, not 5. Elder Park was secure. He and Jaywan were too entangled for Park to switch sides now. That left 3 undecided, a Yoon, Song, and Choi. He needed 2 of them, just 2. Jaywan reached for his phone, started making calls. Elder Song's son had gambling debts, substantial ones, to very dangerous people. Jaywan had been quietly paying them off over the past year, buying leverage. Time to cash in that debt. Elder Choi's grandson needed a business opportunity. His startup was failing. Jaywan could either fund it or make sure it collapsed completely and took the family name down with it. And Elder Yoon was the wild card. Pragmatic, careful, always calculating which side would serve his interests. He'd wait until the last minute to decide, unless Jaywan gave him a reason to decide early. The right incentive. or the right threat. By the time dawn broke over Seoul, Jaywan had made a dozen calls, set a dozen plans in motion, called in favors, issued threats, made promises he might or might not keep. The council meeting was in 6 days. But the real battle started now. And unlike his naive brother, Jaywan wasn't afraid to fight dirty. He looked at the security monitor again. Jade had finally fallen asleep, curled up in the chair by the window rather than in the bed. She looked small, fragile, breakable. "You think he can save you?" Jaywan murmured to the screen. "You think he's changed enough, become strong enough, earned enough respect to beat me." He finished his whiskey, set down the glass. "But you're forgetting something, Jade. You're forgetting that I have something he doesn't." He smiled at her sleeping form on the screen. "I have you. And as long as I have you, I have him. Because he's vulnerable through you. He'll make emotional decisions to protect you. He'll make mistakes." Jaywan stood, moved to the window of his office, looked out at his compound. His kingdom. Everything he'd built while his brother played dancer on some island. "He's vulnerable through her," he said to his reflection in the glass. "If I make her suffer, he'll react emotionally. He'll make mistakes." And mistakes in war were fatal. Jaywan smiled. 6 days until the council meeting. 6 days to break his brother. 6 days to prove once and for all that he deserved this power. Let the war begin, and Jade was his. Okay, Soul Stars, real talk. Can Minjay actually pull this off? Can he win 3 elder votes through diplomacy while his brother is using intimidation and threats? Can he become powerful enough to beat Jaywan without becoming like Jaywan? Or is he about to prove that Jaywan was right all along, that Minjay is too soft, too emotional, too weak to lead this family? I want you to comment right now. Tell me, will Minjay win? Or will Jaywan crush him like he did 7 years ago? Because I'm not sure. I genuinely don't know if Minjay is strong enough for what's coming. What do you think?